Part 45. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 441. Uncle, long time no see. Aragaki Akira said with a smile. Zhang Daokang looked at him coldly and said, "You have done such a good thing, and now you still have the nerve to talk to me." Aragaki was obviously shameless, or in front of his family, he didn't need to hide his true nature. He came close to Daozang Zhang and said, "Uncle Master, didn't you come to see me?" Zhang Daozang didn't talk nonsense to him and said directly, "Change your destiny, you really dare to do anything? Hurry up and put an end to this matter." Niaguan Ming did not answer directly, but looked at the statue in front of him and said to Taoist Zhang, "Uncle Master, look at our ancestor, our sect is obviously the best in the world, but now you are in such a state of decline, are you willing? Don't you want to restore the prosperity of the past?" Zhang Daozang looked at the statue in front of him, sighed, and said, "Master Patriarch has never thought of commanding the Taoist sect in the world. Taoism is in the heart, not in the incense." Aragaki Ming said, "You are very capable, but you are willing to be inferior to others. You are willing to do so, but I am not." Zhang Daokang looked at him steadily, "You want to destroy the Aragaki clan." When Akira Aragaki heard this, his eyes instantly became fierce, and he said, "I did not destroy the Aragaki clan, I brought the Aragaki clan back to the throne as a guest of honor. I am the hero of the Aragaki clan." Zhang Daokang sighed, "You are in trouble, one step is wrong and the other is wrong." However, Aragaki's eyes were red and he said viciously, "I'm not wrong. In the past, your ancestor Xinyuan Ping was convicted by Emperor Wen of the Han dynasty for cheating and wiped out 3 tribes. It was the ancestor who secretly protected your Xinyuan family's only seedling, and that's why you are today. You have made the same mistakes as your ancestors again," Zhang Daokang said. Aragaki Ming said, "What do the affairs of my ancestors have to do with me? I have the ability. Even if I offend the current emperor, when the dynasty changes, I will be a national teacher respected by thousands of people." Not only did he not feel that he was wrong, but he even pulled Taoist Zhang and said, "Uncle Master, don't you want to live forever? As long as you teach me, I can teach you the secret of immortality." There was no trace of excitement on Daokang Zhang's face as he said, "Now it seems that you are stubborn. Uncle Master, do you really not want to live forever?" Zhang Daokang sneered and said, "Your father wanted to live forever, your grandfather wanted to live forever, and even your ancestor Niaguanping did the same. Do you really think the longevity technique your family learned is a good thing? Could it be that it is cursed?" Aragaki Akira was immediately speechless. "I am willing to give you this opportunity because of my years of friendship with the same family. If you still refuse, then I will have no choice but to clean up the family," Zhang Daozang said. A flash of thought flashed in Aragaki's eyes, and then he said, "Okay, since the uncle has spoken, I will listen to the uncle. I only hope that the uncle can defend me in front of His Majesty. I am willing to lift the relationship between the two of them. The trick of changing fate is just to save my life." Taoist Zhang nodded and said, "As long as you can figure it out." Aragaki Ming added, "Uncle Master, my nephew has to prepare some things for dispelling the spell. When ready, my nephew will go to Jingzhou Mansion to surrender." Zhang Daozang looked at his expression carefully and saw that he didn't seem to be faking, so he felt relieved and said, "I'll wait for you at Jingzhou Mansion in 3 days." Zhang Daokang turned around and left. However, Aragaki Ming behind him immediately raised his head, and then took out a simple-shaped dagger from his arms. The cold light flashed and he stabbed Daozang Zhang in the back. He thought that this blow was foolproof, but he didn't expect that Daokang Zhang would look like he had eyes on his back. He swung back the fly whisk in his hand, and Akira Aragaki was beaten back several steps along with the dagger. "Uncle Master, you have always been on guard against me," Arigaki Ming actually blamed Daozang Zhang first. Zhang Daozang said, "You can make blood sacrifices, how dare I not guard you?" Upon hearing this, Arigaki took out a small porcelain bottle from his arms and poured all the elixirs inside into his mouth. Zhang Daozang quietly took 2 steps back. Arigaki Ming said, "Uncle Master, you forced me." Daozang Zhang calmly clapped his hands and said, "Come out, everyone." Arigaki was stunned when he heard this. After a while, dozens of city guards defended the ruined temple. "You actually brought outsiders to disturb the ancestors' temple," Arigaki Ming said. He never expected that his uncle would betray him early. If he knew, he would definitely not come out to meet. He wanted to take the opportunity to get rid of his uncle, but he was tricked by his uncle. Zhang Daozang said, "I said, the Tao is in the heart, not in the incense, nor in the statues and temples." Ariaki's current state was obviously abnormal, and Daozang Zhang did not insist on fighting him. No matter how powerful Ariaki's spells were, he could not withstand the ants that killed the elephant. After a hard fight, the temple collapsed completely, and Ariaki was also captured. "Lived. Even if you catch me, I won't be able to remove the spell," Akira Arigaki said. "Death is the end of the world," Zhang Daokang sighed. Arigaki Ming panicked for the first time and said, "Uncle Master, I was wrong. I am willing to remove the spell, and I am also willing to tell His Majesty everything. Please help me and beg your Majesty, as long as he spares my life." Zhang Daokang has always been direct in doing things, and he said in a low voice, "But I don't want you to lose your integrity as a teacher. Your Majesty knows the cause and effect, which is not a good thing." After saying that, Zhang Daokang slapped Arigaki Ming on the forehead. Arigaki Akira didn't breathe until he lost his breath, and his eyes were still full of disbelief when he looked at his uncle. The commanders of the city guards who were around to help with the arrest felt their heads hurt when they saw this situation. "Master Zhang, the person is dead. I can't go back to report to His Majesty and the Queen Mother," the commander said with a stiff face. Master Zhang looked indifferent and said, "It has nothing to do with me." The commander of the city guards took a deep breath and asked, "Master Zhang, are you killing people to silence them?" Master Zhang's face showed a smile and said, "You figured it out." Then, before the commander of the city guards could react, Master Zhang's feet were like the wind, and he disappeared in front of everyone in a few jumps. Master Zhang ran away. "How could you let him run away?" the Queen Mother asked. She hadn't let Master Zhang see concubine Shun's belly yet, how could she see it if she ran away? The commander of the city guards repeated the conversation between Xian Ming and Taoist Zhang, saying, "I am guilty. I did not realize that Taoist Zhang intended to clean up the mess. He has some ghostly tricks and cannot be caught at all." The emperor was skeptical about the idea of changing fate, but since Xian Ming's death, a shadow in his heart seemed to be wiped away. He said, "Mother, since Taoist Zhang has left, it must be what you want in your heart. If he is unwilling to agree, you should not force it. In any case, this may be the fate of your son." Xian Ping, a swindler in history, deceived Emperor Wen of Han and was exterminated along with his 3 clans. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 442. The Queen Mother originally thought that Taoist Zhang had many magical skills, and maybe he could also reverse men and women, and reverse yin and yang. The Queen Mother really didn't want the throne to fall into the hands of a branch. The Emperor waved his hand and asked the commander of the city guard to leave. There were only mother and son left in the hall. The Queen Mother asked, "Emperor, aren't you curious about the truth? Don't you want to know who's fatally changed? Don't you want to meet this person?" The Emperor sighed, "You are old, even if you know the truth, what can you do now?" If it were 10 years ago, the Emperor might have investigated the truth to the end, but he was nearly 50 years old. The closer he was to the age of knowing his destiny, the more he felt that some things were irreversible. He was very satisfied to welcome a new life at such an age. The Queen Mother looked at her son distressedly, and couldn't help thinking that without Li's interference, maybe her son would have had both sons and daughters, and he would not be so lonely today. "Emperor, how are you going to deal with Li?" the Queen Mother asked. With Xin Yuanming's death, the emperor seemed to suddenly wake up. In an instant, he lost all his favoritism towards Li. His past memories were like a layer of grey light. He couldn't imagine that he would favor such a vicious woman as Li. "Mother, Li will be handed over to you. I am unfilial. I favored Li before and almost let her harm you." The emperor was full of guilt. The Queen Mother felt relieved when she saw her son with clear eyes. Besides, there was no overnight hatred between mother and son. But the Queen Mother still took precautions in advance and said, "If I treat her with the most cruel means in the world, will you think your mother is cruel?" The emperor immediately shook his head. Li colluded with the criminal Li Chaosheng and poisoned the medicine of the Queen Mother. Such evil deeds are not too much to be executed by slow slicing. The Queen Mother saw that he really had no feelings for Li anymore, and she was relieved. Li Zikin's assassination of an imperial official shocked the court and the public. The Li family lost favor in the palace, and Li Zikin, the head of the family, had died. Immediately, like monkeys scattering when a tree falls, everyone rushed up to trample on the Li family. Gu Mingda summoned Wang He to the mansion and said, "Now it's time for you to take revenge. I will write an impeachment and tell you all about your past with the Li family." Wang He didn't expect that she could wait until the day when her enemy was executed. She knelt down immediately. "Please seek justice for my entire family of 38 people and my maternal grandfather's family of 22 people." Gu Mingda listened to Wang He's narration and felt that things in this world were really a coincidence. Wang He's maternal grandfather's family was the family that sold braised food, and the braised food recipe was passed on to the Gu family. These two families were all tempted by money. The Li family was greedy and relied on the power of the imperial concubine and Li Zikin to act recklessly. Guanglin Mansion had almost changed its surname to Li before. There are many victims like them. Gu Mingdan not only vindicated her, but also said, "I will find a way to let the official return your family's property to you, and you don't have to work so hard to make a living in the capital in the future." Wang He immediately said, "Sir, I am willing to give all the property of the family to thank you for your help." Zhang Yuniang on the side and said, "We help you not for your family's property, but because we feel sorry for you, a little girl, who is young and carries a blood feud and runs to the capital to make a living. We are not short of money, you don't need to mention this matter again." Wang He heard this and lowered her head to wipe away tears. Since her family was broken up, she didn't know how much cold treatment and torture she had suffered. This only warmth was actually felt from Gu Mingda and Zhang Yuniang. Zhang Yuniang continued, "There may still be someone alive in your maternal grandparents' family. My family's braised food recipe was exchanged from an old beggar in Guanglin Mansion. The old beggar said that it was given to him by a young beggar." When Wang He heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up. When she left Gu Mingda's study, she saw Naiyuniu holding hands with Xiexin Chuan outside the door and talking. "Naiyuniu, you look much better today," Wang He said happily. Although Naiyuniu woke up earlier, her face was still pale. It was obvious that using special abilities twice in a row still hurt her. Naiyuniu's face was rosy at this time. She raised her head and smiled and said, "I don't know why, it's like I suddenly have a lot of strength. Brother Xie said that my strength has increased." Wang He looked at Xiexin Chuan on the side. She had seen this young man before and knew that he was the godson of the Gu family. He was very good at martial arts at a young age. Instead, Xiexin Chuan took the initiative to ask, "I heard that your family has a long fist that has been passed down from generation to generation. Can you show me a few?" Nayuniu's eyes lit up immediately and said, "Brother, my sister is very powerful. Maybe you can't beat her." Xie Chuan raised his eyebrows and said, "You are a girl? Forget it, I don't bully girls." Xie Chuan shook his head like a rattle. Wang He had solved the big problem in his heart, and he recovered some of his youthful heart. He immediately said, "What's wrong with girls? Can't girls fight? Do I have one less hand or one less foot than you? I won't lose to you." Xie Chuan heard her say this, touched the back of his head, and said, "Okay, since you like to be beaten so much, don't cry when the time comes." Nayuniu looked at Wang He, then at Xie Chuan, and suddenly laughed with her hands covering her mouth. "Nayuniu, what are you laughing at?" Wang He couldn't help asking. Nayuniu's eyes sparkled, and she said, "Brother likes sister very much. When meeting others, brother doesn't like to talk so much, he always pretends to be dumb." Xie Chuan immediately retorted, "Who likes her? I'm just afraid that she will cry." Wang He gently patted Nayuniu's head and said, "Nayuniu, talking a lot doesn't mean love." Xie Chuan looked at Wang He's expressionless face, and couldn't help but look at her more, thinking that she was not as shy as an ordinary little girl. The two stood in the yard, and Xie Chuan did not take a spear, but responded with the long fist in the army. There was almost no need for any words, and there was no so-called humility. After looking at each other, they immediately started fighting. The movement in the yard attracted the attention of the couple in the study. "Husband, who do you think will win?" Zhang Yuniang asked with a smile. Now that all the enemies of the Gu family hiding in the dark have been killed, Zhang Yuniang feels that there will never be a smoother day than now. Gu Mingda said, "Wang He's boxing skills are better in agility, but compared to strength, most of them are not as good as Xin Chuan. So my husband is optimistic about Xin Chuan?" Zhang Yuniang asked. Gu Mingda shook his head and said, "I am optimistic about Wang He, because you are not optimistic about her, so I have to do the opposite." The winner in the yard has not been decided, but the interrogation in the palace has come to an end. The Queen Mother did not show mercy to Li, and directly sent her to the Ministry of Punishment. Almost all the punishments were repeated. Li no longer dared to say that she was a favorite concubine. She screamed at this time, "I say, I am willing to say anything. I will tell her whatever the Queen Mother wants to know." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 443. In Shaokong Palace, the Queen Mother asked people to clean up the side hall. After Li was tied up and arrived here, she felt like she was in another world. She still remembered that she was so eager to have a son that she came to the Queen Mother to ask for Gu 11 to enter the palace. Ms. Li never thought that if Gu 11 had not entered the palace, she might still be the doting concubine Li in the harem. Ms. Li was kicked, her legs hurt, and she knelt heavily on the ground. She was tortured in the Shenxing department. At this time, she almost reflexively begged for mercy. When she saw the Queen Mother sitting high, she bid her own. "No sound came out of my lips. Ms. Li, you're already mute, why don't you pay your respects to the Queen Mother?" The nun who was escorting Ms. Li from the Department of Punishment scolded her harshly. Ms. Li lowered her head, but before she could speak, the Queen Mother waved her hands and said, "Even if she sends greetings to the AI family, she is not sincere. The AI family cannot bear it." The nun of the Shenxing department immediately bent down, smiled flatteringly, and said, "The Queen Mother is magnanimous and doesn't care about Mr. Li's rudeness." Grandma Sun invited the grandma from the Shenxing division out and took the whip from her hand. The whip was covered with blood, and it had been slapped on Ms. Li a lot during this period. Now looking at the whip, Mrs. Li shook uncontrollably. Grandma Sun couldn't help but sigh when she saw this situation. Who would have thought that concubine Li, who was so glorious in the past, would turn into such a cowed look now? In the side hall, only the Queen Mother, Grandma Sun, and the tightly tied up Li family were left. Ms. Li, why did you order Li Chaosheng to murder the Queen Mother in the first place? Grandma Sun asked proactively. Mrs. Li lowered her head, rolled her eyes guiltily, and opened her mouth to say, I hate the Queen Mother for making things difficult for me and preventing me from becoming the Queen. But as soon as she said these words, Grandma Sun swung her whip and hit her hard. If you are unwilling to tell the truth, we should send you back to the sentence department and continue your trial. When you become honest, we will try you again, Grandma Sun said. Li's body trembled. Thinking of the torture suffered by Shen Xingxi, she did not dare to continue tormenting, and said, I said, do you believe that people have an afterlife? I am a person who has lived a lifetime. Pa. Pa. But what responded to Li was the whip that was swung down by Grandma Sun. I didn't lie, everything I said this time is true, Li said. Seeing that she didn't look fake, Grandma Sun turned to look at the Queen Mother, who nodded lightly. Li continued, I was also the Emperor's concubine in my previous life, and I had some quarrels with the Queen. The Queen Mother favored the Queen. I felt unhappy, so I secretly attacked the Queen Mother in advance. Naturally, Grandma Sun could tell that there were a lot of beautifying words about herself in Li's words. She whipped down the whip and said, don't put gold on your face. Mrs. Li cried out in pain, and then she said, I failed to poison the Queen, but instead killed the little princess. The Queen Mother ordered me to commit suicide. The poison entered my stomach, and I was in great pain. My heart ached for 3 days and 3 nights. He died of torture, so I hate the Queen Mother. When the Queen Mother heard this, she felt a dull pain in her heart for some unknown reason, as if she had really lost a little granddaughter. Grandma Sun did not find any loopholes in Li's words this time. After all, anyone who retains his memory and lives another life will find a way to kill his enemies from the previous life. In his previous life, Li Chaosheng rose to prominence quickly after entering the Imperial Hospital because of his superb medical skills. He was deeply trusted by the Emperor and the Queen Mother. I knew that Li Chaosheng was suffering before entering the Imperial Hospital, so I rescued him in advance and asked him to be grateful to me and let me control him. There are many people like this. Relying on the memory of my past life, I have successfully mastered many useful people. Even the encounter with His Majesty was planned by me. I knew when he would pay a private visit incognito. He would not have been assassinated originally. It was also my arrangement. Those assassins who pretended to be the remnants of King Li were all killed. Well, it can be regarded as dead without any evidence. Accompanied by Grandma Sun's whip, Li poured the beans out of the bamboo tube. The Queen Mother looked at Mrs. Li in front of her, and she didn't expect that the Emperor had pampered such a poisonous snake for so many years. The Queen Mother already knows about the fate change, but you still want to hide it, asked Grandma Sun. Mrs. Li took a deep breath. She had been doting in the harem for more than 10 years, and she almost forgot that her favor was stolen. She instinctively didn't want to talk about it, but when the whip was whipped, she couldn't help but keep silent. The Queen came from a humble background. She met His Majesty for the first time at Baiyun Temple in the suburbs of Beijing. They met under a peach blossom tree. His Majesty was obsessed with her. He took her into the palace and made her the queen. From then on, she was favored in the harem and no one else could survive. When he mentioned this matter, his eyes were filled with deep-seated hatred. The Queen has given birth to a princess. Are there any other children? The Queen Mother asked proactively. Li's eyes flickered, but Grandma Sun had already whipped her in advance, so she could only say honestly, the Queen gave birth to a son and a daughter. The Queen Mother breathed heavily and asked, son, that child, What kind of person is he? Mrs. Li didn't like the prince, but she had to admit that he was a smart child with the aura of heaven and earth. He was established as the prince when he was born. He is a handsome child. The Queen Mother and your Majesty love him very much. Mrs. Li originally thought that she could become a queen and give birth to a prince by taking away the queen's destiny, but she never expected that she would become a concubine at the highest level and could not even lay an egg, yet she could easily return the destiny object to its original owner. The Queen Mother covered her chest and stared at Li with a grim look. When she thought that she had a grandson, she wanted to eat Li alive. Who is the queen? Where is she now? The Queen Mother asked. She thought that even if the queen was married, she would use means to get someone to enter the palace to help the emperor give birth to a prince. When Li heard this, a strange smile appeared on her face and she said, "She is dead." The Queen Mother was so angry that she almost fell over. Nanny's son hurriedly held her hand and said, "My queen, don't worry. If a sinner like Li can live again, maybe the queen can too." Taoist Zhang also said that Li is now in a state of desolation because her fate has returned to its place. It must be that the queen is alive again. That's why it's like this. The Queen Mother said as if she had grabbed a life-saving straw, "Yes, she must be alive again, but I don't know where she went." The Queen Mother and Nanny Son looked at Li together. Li did not hide it and said, "Our queen has been known as a lucky girl since she was young. When she was born, her family became rich. Her second brother also won the first place in the imperial examination. She has a deep relationship with her family. Even if she were to live her life again, she would not stay in a wealthy family and would go back to that poor family." After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 444. As Li finished speaking, who was this person? Her name was almost ready to be spoken. The Queen Mother took a breath. She even thought that the person who died more than 10 years ago was reincarnated immediately after death and was now a teenager. She did not expect that this person was actually Niu Niu, but Niu Niu had just turned 8 years old. By the time the little girl reached haircut, the emperor was already very old. Moreover, Niu Niu had lived in Shaokong Palace for so long, and the Queen Mother had already doted on her as if she were her own granddaughter, and even intended to grant marriage to Niu Niu and Li Xian. Mrs. Li is telling the Queen Mother the truth now, just to embarrass the Queen Mother. "Nonsense," the Queen Mother scolded. Grandma Sun also had some affection for Niu Niu, and immediately struck Li with a whip. "You still dare to bite Niu Niu." Mrs. Li was beaten to pieces but did not change her words. Instead, she looked straight at the Queen Mother and said, "The Queen Mother, as soon as she entered the palace, I lost power one after another. Have you forgotten all this? No matter how dangerous she encounters, she can turn danger into good fortune. In the previous life, the emperor was in great danger when encountering a tiger, but when the tiger saw the queen, he became even more well-behaved than a raccoon slave. In this life, her father has been taking exams for so many years she has never been selected as a scholar, but after adopting her, she rose to the top and became the #1 scholar. Is this an ordinary person?" The Queen Mother's heart sank. There was something strange about Niu Niu. In the past, the Queen Mother always felt proud of having a lucky child. Now she just couldn't bear the thought of such a possibility. After being whipped for a long time, Mrs. Li finally showed a happy expression on her face, as if seeing the Queen Mother in a dilemma made her very happy. "As long as your Majesty marries the child, you will have a grandson. You don't want the country to fall into the hands of a side branch, ah." Before she could finish her confusing words, Grandma Sun's whip fell like raindrops. "The Empress Dowager, Mrs. Li has bad intentions, and I request that she be sent back to the sentence department for the time being," Grandma Sun said. The Queen Mother nodded and said, "Deal with her. Don't let her run away and talk nonsense to the emperor." When Grandma Sun returned from sending people off, the Queen Mother was still sitting on the chair, looking at a potted plant not far away, with half of her face shrouded in shadow, making it unclear what she was thinking. "Empress, are you still thinking about Mrs. Li's words?" Grandma Sun asked softly. The Queen Mother sighed and said, "The AI family has never enjoyed the pleasures of ordinary people, such as having fun with their grandchildren and having fun in front of them." Grandma Sun said, "What Li said may not be true. It's impossible to say that she just doesn't like Niu Niu and sincerely wants to harm Niu Niu." The Queen Mother shook her head and said, "No wonder Niu Niu looks familiar to the AI family. The little princess in the AI family's dream is her daughter. How can it not look familiar to her?" Grandma Sun hesitated for a long time before asking, "Empress Dowager, do you really want Niu Niu?" The Queen Mother said, "The Li family wants to watch the AI family do this, but the AI family cannot do this. The Queen Mother has been in the palace for so many years, and she knows that even if your enemy seems to be doing your best, and the suggestions he makes seem to be for your own good, you cannot follow the opponent's rhythm. After all, no one knows the enemy's suggestions. What kind of pit is hidden in it?" The Queen Mother, "What about the prince?" Grandma Sun asked cautiously. "Do you still remember that something happened to the Gu family before and we forced Niu Niu to stay in the palace?" the Queen Mother said. Grandma Sun felt a sudden change in her heart. Leaving someone in at that time not only made Niu Niu unconscious, but also made concubine Shun feel uncomfortable in her stomach. "What do you mean, we can only follow Niu Niu and not go against her?" asked Grandma Sun. The Queen Mother nodded and said, "Outsiders don't know the truth about fate. What kind of person is Li? She has been favored by the harem for more than 10 years with the help of stolen money. She has made many big mistakes in the past, but the emperor has forgiven her for them all. This shows the profound influence of this fate. Perhaps people like Niu Niu are born to enjoy blessings when they come to the world. If they are forced to stay, they may have endless troubles. The AI family now only hopes that she can take a liking to Li Xian, and at least she can guarantee the status of my Li family." The Queen Mother said. "Your Majesty, concubine Shun may not have a princess in her womb," Grandma Sun advised. The Queen Mother nodded perfunctorily. She paid the price of losing her grandson and barely saved Niu Niu. After thinking about all this, the Queen Mother only felt exhausted. Niu Niu had no idea that she almost got into trouble. Xie Chuan felt sorry for the little girl and stayed at Gu's house to stay with Niu Niu for several days. "Brother, do you want to go back to the border town? Can you not go back? The New Year is coming soon, can you celebrate the New Year with me?" Niu Niu chattered a lot with her small mouth. Xie Chuan shook his head and said, "I came back this time because the border town had just won a great victory and my father was too busy, so he asked me to come back to accept the reward for him. I will set off on the 5th day of the lunar month." As for the Chinese New Year, he actually wanted to stay with the Gu family, but the Xie family's problems couldn't be ignored by procrastination. There was a hint of disappointment in Niu Niu's eyes and she said, "Today is the 25th of the 12th lunar month, so I can only stay in the capital for 10 days. As the New Year approaches, the yamen are closed one after another. Niu Niu has not returned to the palace to go to school since she was assassinated. She has been going crazy at home these days and is really reluctant to leave Xie Chuan. I'm back." Gu Zhao's voice suddenly sounded from outside, and he rushed in like a little firecracker. "My dear, have you missed me?" Gu Zhao and Gu Yan came back together. Baiyun Academy was on holiday, and old Dr. Yan also let Gu Zhao come back. "I thought about it. I think of my third brother when I eat something delicious, and I also think of my third brother when I eat something not delicious," Niu Niu said seriously. As for why she thinks of Gu Zhao when something is not delicious, of course it is because Gu Zhao is not picky about food and is willing to be Niu Niu's trash can and eat things that Niu Niu doesn't like to eat. Gu Zhao is easy to deal with and was very happy to hear this. Guyan smiled gently at AncientChina. Even though he knew that AncientChina was younger than him, AncientChina was now a head taller than him. Guyan really couldn't treat AncientChina the way he treated his younger brother. Brother Xie, come on, teach me some new shooting skills. I feel like I practiced well. Take a look, Gu Zhao tried to take Xie's gun next to him. But as soon as he got it in his hand, he felt it was heavy and couldn't move it at all. Niu reminded him, Brother Xie doesn't like others to touch his gun. That day, Sister Ling wanted to touch it, but he refused to let her. AncientChina waved his hand and said, we are family, it's okay. Gu Zhao shook his head, forget it, I'll show you a stick. Gu Zhao had learned a set of gun techniques from AncientChina before. Now he was playing with a stick. It can only be said that the gun techniques he showed were not exactly the same as what AncientChina taught him, but they were completely unrelated. AncientChina frowned and watched him finish his gun techniques. When he was urged to say what he thought, he hesitated for a long time before saying, Zhao, I still have to thank you. Gu Zhao was a stubborn person. When he heard this, he immediately forgot about playing with the gun and asked, thank me for what? The medicinal materials in the sachet, the birthday gift you and Niu gave me, saved my life on the battlefield, AncientChina said. AncientChina was alone on the battlefield investigating the enemy's situation, and escaped with serious injuries. He relied on the medicinal materials placed in the sachet to survive until the reinforcements sent by his father. The brother and sister realized the danger at that time. Gu Zhao patted his chest and said, Brother Xie, since it is useful, I will make you a few more medicines and make sachets to take back this time. Zhang Yuniang saw the four children gathered together from a distance, and they looked so close that they looked like a family. She couldn't help but smile, but she felt depressed when she thought of the people from the Xie family. But it was not good to keep other people's children at home. AncientChina, your mother sent someone to take you back to the Xie family, Zhang Yuniang said with reluctance. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 445. Zhang Yuniang didn't have a good impression of the Xie family. Her son hadn't come home since he returned to Beijing. If it were her, she would have gone to pick him up in person. The Xie family not only delayed him for so many years, but also only sent a nanny to pick him up, showing no regard for him at all. When AncientChina heard this, the smile on his face instantly withdrew, but even if he was reluctant, the word filial piety pressed down on him, and AncientChina still stood up and wanted to leave. But he found that he was being held back by something, turned around, lowered his head and saw Niu pulling at the hem of his sleeve. Brother, can you not go back to the Xie family? Niu asked in a low voice. AncientChina was embarrassed and said, that's my home. It's almost the new year, so I have to go back. Niu said, but this is your home. AncientChina can really feel the sense of belonging here. He actually envies the children of the Gu family. Whether it is Niu who entered the palace or the two brothers who studied in Baiyun town, Zhang Yuniang and Gu Mingda always care about them. The kind of most sincere care that parents give to their children is something he has never felt in the Xie family. Sometimes he thought that the Gu family obviously has no shortage of children, but they are trying their best to find the lost one. He even hoped that he was the lost second boy. Brother Xie, can you spend the new year with us? Niu was about to cry. AncientChina felt a little distressed, but he still reached out and patted the little girl's head and said, Brother will come to see you in a few days and bring you a gift. Niu shook her head and said, I don't want a gift, I just want Brother Xie to spend the new year with me. Zhang Yuniang was also uncomfortable watching from the side, but she still pulled Niu's hand away and said, Niu, be good, your brother Xie will spend the new year with your aunt Xie. Which mother doesn't want her son to spend the new year with her? Niuniu lowered her head with a look of disappointment. Zhang Yuniang took Xie Chuan to the front yard. When the nanny sent by the Xie family saw Xie Chuan, there was no smile on her face, but she said with a stern face, "Master, the lady is very unhappy." Xie Chuan frowned slightly. Zhang Yuniang took out the purse she had prepared and said to the nurse of the Xie family, "Madam Xie, I have been looking forward to meeting your wife, but I have sent her visiting cards several times, but Madam Xie was too busy to meet her. I hope you will accept this small gift." Madam Xie took the gift and weighed the purse. Her expression softened, but she still said, "Please forgive me, Madam Gu. My wife has a lot of things to do. There are so many people who want to visit her. It is not easy for everyone to see her. But don't worry, madam. I have some face in front of my wife. I will say a few good words for you later." The smile on Zhang Yuniang's face froze. They were all imperial wives conferred by the court. Madam Xie's words made Madam Xie look very high, as if Zhang Yuniang was also one of those people who came to ask for favors. Instead, Xie Chuan snatched the purse from Aunt Xie's hand, stuffed it into Zhang Yuniang's hand, and said with a serious face, "Since mother is busy, then godmother should not disturb her." Xie Chuan did not want to see Zhang Yuniang's feelings being trampled on by the Xie family for him. Zhang Yuniang naturally knew that this was because her godson loved her, but she felt more sorry for Xie Chuan for having such a difficult mother. Nan Xie lost a rich purse and felt empty for a moment, but Zhang Yuniang was a noble lady after all, so she did not dare to turn her face away in front of her, and could only urge, "Master, the lady is still waiting for you to go back at home." Zhang Yuniang was reluctant, and could only remind him, "Xin Chuan, don't forget to eat well after you go back. You are still growing up now, and you must not be hungry." Zhang Yuniang handed him a large bag of food that she had prepared. Since she heard that Xie Chuan often went hungry because he was disobedient when he was a child, Zhang Yuniang was very worried. Xie Chuan took a look and found that most of the food was what he liked. He had not lived in Gu's house for a long time, and he had never said what he liked to eat. All these preferences were observed by Zhang Yuniang. Zhang Yuniang personally sent Xie Chuan out, saying, "It's a pity that your godfather went out to visit friends today, and he didn't even know you were home." Xie Chuan stood outside the gate of Gu's house and said, "Godmother, please go back. It's windy outside. I'll just send you here." Zhang Yuniang nodded helplessly. Just as Xie Chuan was about to leave, he suddenly saw a furry little head sticking out of the gate. His heart warmed and he waved to her. Niu ran over with a bunch of food in her arms. "These are my snacks, for my brother." Xie Chuan said, "Don't worry, I'm so old, I won't be hungry, these are your favorite foods, you can keep them." Niu shook her head and said, "I love to eat, so I want to give it to my brother, so that my brother will think of me when he eats." Xie Chuan gently pinched Niu's little face and said, "You are really a clever little ghost, but my brother doesn't need snacks to think of Niu." He was not lying. When he was in the border town, Xie Chuan often thought of Niu and the Gu family, and it seemed that his memories had turned into colors. The Xie family's carriage started moving, and Zhang Yuniang led Niu to watch the carriage disappear at the corner of the street. "In a few days, your parents will take you to the Xie family to pay New Year's greetings, and you will see your brother Xie again," Zhang Yuniang comforted Niu. Niu nodded obediently and said, "Mom, it would be great if brother Xie was my second brother, so that we can spend the New Year together as a family." Zhang Yuniang was helpless. She had thought of this possibility, but when they were on the boat, the doctor who took care of Xie Chuan said that Madame Xie had a difficult birth and was saved by his master. It was unlikely that the child born in front of others could be her son. Gu Mingde checked the list of eunuchs in the palace several times in the past 6 months and met several people in person, but none of them was their son. The second boy, who could not be found for a long time, was almost a headache for the couple. In the Xie family carriage, Madame Xie said with a gloomy face, "Master, you were raised by this old slave. Now this old slave is also arrogant to advise the young master. Madame has worked hard for the young master for so many years. The hardship is something that outsiders cannot understand. How can the young master be alienated from Madame because of a few nice words from outsiders?" Xie Chuan stared at her coldly. From childhood to adulthood, he tolerated Madame Xie because she was his wet nurse. He was also brainwashed by the Xie family and regarded Madame Xie as half a mother. But after experiencing what a mother is like in the Gu family, Xie Chuan realized that neither Xie nor Aunt Xie can be called a good mother. My godmother not only said nice things, she also did many things to make me happy. And, do you think that being nice to me is not a good thing, but that people who are not nice to me and torture me in every possible way are really good? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 446. A trace of guilt flashed across Nanny Xie's face, but she still said, "Master, you have really misunderstood Madam. Only through hardship can one become a great person. Madam is all for your own good." Xie Chuan couldn't help laughing and said, "Is suffering a blessing?" She didn't do anything wrong, but she was unhappy and had to kneel in the ice and snow. Why didn't others see such suffering? In the eyes of Grandma, what kind of despicable person is he who doesn't deserve others to treat me well? Some of Madame Xie's behaviors felt to Nanny Xie to be too willful, but she would not speak ill of her master. She could only say, "Master, just remember that you are Madame's only son, how could she harm you?" Xie Chuan didn't like to talk at all. The reason why he talks so much now is because after leaving the Gu family, he felt as if his heart was blocked by a ball of wet cotton. He didn't agree with what Grandma Xie said at all. Seeing her stubbornness at this time, he didn't bother to refute anymore. The carriage entered Xie's house. As soon as it arrived at the main courtyard where Xie lived, Xie Chuan's ears were very good. Before he entered, he heard laughter coming from inside. "And, if you like the plum blossoms I put in the vase, then I will send you a vase every day. Don't think you'd like me to cut off the plum blossoms in the garden." The young girl's delicate laughter was as clear as a bell. "You girl, you know how to make me happy, unlike your cold-faced cousin who puts on a bad face all day long. You don't know why you thought you had offended him, but you get upset when you see him," Xie said. Xie Chuan entered the yard, and just as he was about to enter the house, Grandma Xie stopped him and said, "Master, there are women in the house. I will go in first and report them." Xie Chuan glanced at Nanny Xie solemnly. Auntie Xie felt a little guilty. After all, she never had to pass the news when her cousin entered the main courtyard. This rule of passing the news seemed to be only for Xie Chuan. When Xie heard Grandma Xie's report, she frowned slightly and said, "You're back now. I thought this scoundrel had forgotten that he still had a family." Grandma Xie wiped the cold sweat from her forehead and whispered, "Madam, the young master is not young now. He has grown legs and can run on his own. Don't always be like before, lest all the hard work you have put in for so many years will be in vain." Xie was still able to listen to what she said about accompanying her in the room, and said casually, "Okay, I understand, just let him in." When Xie Chuan walked in, he looked at Mrs. He remembered that when he was in the Gu family, the scene had never been so deserted. Even though he wore a mask and was silent, the Gu family had never been indifferent because of his arrival, and even tried their best to get him to join the family's excitement, for fear that ignored him. Whether you are careful or not is really obvious. MRSE swallowed the words of blame that blurted out, now that you are back, you should calm down and return to the border town before the new year begins. Don't let your hard work go to waste. Xie Chuan agreed. MRSE was annoyed when she saw her son's cold face. On the other hand, cousin Lin Suero said with a smile, "Cousin, you don't know that while you were away from home, my aunt has been talking about you. Today she even specially ordered the kitchen to stew gastrodia duck soup for you." The old duck soup that Madame Xie stewed was actually to nourish Lin Suero. Now that Lin Suero said this, she did not refute it. Just like what Nanny Xie said, Xie Chuan has grown up and is promising. She will still count on it in the future. Don't go too far with this son. Xie Chuan only said, "Thank you, mother." He didn't mention that he didn't like duck. In the Gu family, he just frowned when he saw roasted duck. Zhang Yuniang took it to heart. After that, the hard dishes on the table were changed to chicken, fish, and mutton. No duck appeared. Does mother have anything else to say? If nothing happens, then my son will leave first, Xie Chuan said. Xie Chuan left the house after getting permission. But as soon as he walked out of the main courtyard, Lin Suero caught up with him. "Cousin." Xie Chuan didn't stop. Behind her, Lin Suero felt secretly resentful, but she could only lift up her skirt and chase after him. She finally caught up. "Cousin, I have something to tell you." People were blocking the way, so Xie Chuan had no choice but to stop. Lin Suero asked softly, "Cousin, how are you doing in the border town?" Xie Chuan frowned at her and nodded casually. Lin Suero knew that her cousin didn't like to talk, but she didn't expect to be so perfunctory to her. She suppressed the displeasure in her heart and put on a concerned look, saying, I am worried about my cousin in the capital. There are no swords on the battlefield. Cousin, please be more careful." When Xie Chuan heard the caring words like a wheel, he felt no emotion in his heart. Lin Suero secretly scolded the idiot for being ignorant, but facing a person who was pretending to be mute, she couldn't keep talking. Finally, she took out a purse and said, "Cousin, this is the purse I embroidered by myself. There are a peace charm that I went to the Huguo temple to ask for." Xie Chuan reached out and took it. Lin Suero breathed a sigh of relief, made a shy gesture and ran away. In the main courtyard of the Xie family, I watched my niece chase Xie Chuan. Only MRSE and Grandma Xie were left in the house. After all, MRSE felt sorry for her niece. "It's pitiful that my Suero is better than others in everything, but she can only marry this ugly guy like Xie Chuan." Madame Xie lowered her voice like a thief and said, "Madam, although the young master has a flawed face, he is brave in the battlefield and may achieve as much as our general in the future." Madame Xie said, "I keep an eye on him and force him to work hard. If he still doesn't succeed, he will really be unworthy of my upbringing." Madame Xie was also impatient to listen to Madame's complaints and said, "Madam, if you feel that Miss Suero has been wronged, you can take Miss Suechuan over. Why not let Miss Suechuan and the young master be a couple? Lin Suechuan is a concubine of the Lin family and has never been valued. Madame Xie's family, the Lin family, has fallen into decline. General Xie is not particularly willing to let Lin Suero be his daughter-in-law, so Lin Suechuan will naturally not be interested in her." Madame Xie immediately said, "Forget it, I will help Suechuan find a marriage for her." Xie Chuan, at a young age, had already made great contributions in the army. Now he is a 6th-rank military officer. Apart from the scar on his face, he can be said to be a young talent, and the best marriage Lin Suero can find now. Madame Xie continued, "Madam, Miss Suero will be an official wife as soon as she marries in, and her mother-in-law is her aunt. There is no more suitable marriage than this, but to be honest, it seems that the young master does not like Miss Suero very much. Madame Xie did not smile much, and said, "It is not up to him to like it or not. If my Chengbao was still alive, why would he marry Suero to this little bastard? He is not worthy." After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 447. After Lin Sueruo handed over the purse, she finally breathed a sigh of relief, but when she returned to the Fangfei courtyard where she lived, she couldn't help it. "Where's the water? Isn't it ready yet?" Lin Sueruo urged. The maid hurriedly brought a basin of warm water sprinkled with various spices. Every time Lin Sueruo came into contact with Xie Chuan, she always washed her hands carefully, and this time was no exception. At this time, her face was full of disgust, and she washed her hands back and forth 3 times before putting them down. But the personal maid whispered, "Miss, although Master Xie has an ugly face, he is tall and is said to be extraordinary on the battlefield and has unlimited future." Lin Sueruo glanced at the maid, and casually threw the handkerchief she used to wipe her hands on the maid's face. "Is he good or not? Do I need you to say it?" The maid immediately dared not speak. Lin Sueruo's eyes fell on the magnificent furnishings around her. She was taken in by Madame Xie when she was very young. The Fangfei courtyard where she lived was larger and more gorgeous than Xie Xingchuan's courtyard. She recalled the declining Lin family. Now several young ladies were crowded in one courtyard. Xie Xingchuan was really the best marriage she could get now. Even if she hated the face under Xie Xingchuan's mask, she would do a good job on the surface. After she got married and had a child, she would live in the capital like her aunt, and she would not have to face Xie Xingchuan all the time. Thinking of this, Lin Sueruo felt that what she had done now was not enough. She told the maid, "Let the small kitchen make a tonic soup, and I will personally deliver it to Zhij courtyard later." In Zhij courtyard, Xie Xingchuan casually pulled out a long knife from the weapon rack in the courtyard, and then threw the green purse he had just taken into the air. The knife flashed, and the purse had become fragments on the ground. Xie Xingchuan threw the knife back onto the weapon rack and strode into the room. The servants behind him immediately cleaned up the purse fragments. In the evening, Lin Sueruo came to deliver the soup in person, but she was stopped before she entered the yard. "Miss, the young master has gone to bed. If you have anything to tell me, just tell me," Xie Xingchuan's follower Xiao Song said with a smile. Lin Sueruo was not surprised to hear this. She didn't want to see Xie Xingchuan's face, so she asked someone to pass the tonic soup over. "Xiao Song, this is the tonic soup I made for my cousin. You should remind him more often and let him take care of his body." Lin Sueruo looked very gentle, as if she was really an innocent girl who loved her cousin. Xiao Song took it attentively and agreed to it. Lin Sueruo felt that she had done her best, so she left with satisfaction. It was only a short while after she left that the tonic soup was served to Xie Xingchuan, who waved his hand casually, "Drink it." Xiao Song immediately smiled and said, "Master, don't expose your cousin. She delivers soup and things all day long, and I feel tired just watching her." Xie Xingchuan didn't care about this little thing. The reason why he always tolerated Lin Sueruo was because if there was a conflict, Madame Xie would definitely rush over to take sides. Seeing Xie Xingchuan's serious face, Xiao Song didn't dare to continue joking and said, "The main courtyard sent someone to send a message saying that Madame was tired in the afternoon, so you don't have to go to the main courtyard to accompany her for dinner." Xie Xingchuan's mouth curled up a sneer. Logically speaking, he had just returned home, and Madame Xie should pretend to be nice. Not to mention welcoming him, at least the mother and son should have a reunion dinner. But Madame Xie didn't want to have dinner with him, so she was too lazy to pretend. In the past, Xie Xingchuan would be sad about such things. Now that he has experienced life and death on the battlefield and has seen what real family members look like, he feels that it is indeed the case, but he is not sad at all. Have you found the person? Xiao Chuan asked. Xiao Song nodded and said, Master, there are Madam's people everywhere in this mansion. If you bring them into the mansion, I am afraid it will alarm Madam. Xiao Chuan did not doubt Madam Xia's control over the Xia mansion. In this mansion, except for a few of his confidants, the other servants probably listened to Lin Sueruo's orders more than he did. Take the person to my private residence. I will meet her in the evening, Xiao Chuan said. Late at night, the lights everywhere dimmed, and the entire Xia mansion seemed to fall asleep. Xiao Chuan changed into black clothes and jumped over the Xia family wall in a few jumps like a kite turning over. The noise he made was very small, like a drop of water falling into the lake, and did not attract the attention of anyone in the Xia family. His private residence was the one that old Lady Gu had helped him bargain for. Although no one had lived in it for a long time, Xiao Chuan had already brought people to clean it in advance, so it looked quite clean. He pushed the door open and walked in. Someone was already waiting inside. Two people, a man and a woman, were tied up and lying together. Xiao Song lit a candle, and then tore off the cloth covering their eyes. Bang! A piece of silver fell on the middle-aged woman. After seeing the money in the faint candlelight, the eyes of the tied couple lit up. Answer honestly, and you can get more silver if you answer well, Xiao Song said. The two nodded hurriedly. Seeing the silver, they didn't care about their current situation. Just ask me, my wife, and I will tell you everything, and I will definitely not dare to lie to you. The masked Xiao Song left the room. Xiao Chuan was in the shadows. At this time, he spoke, in which year did you leave General Xia's mansion? The middle-aged woman froze when she heard this question, but her husband was already urging her, I'm asking you a question, why are you standing there like an idiot? Do you still want the money? Does your son want to get married? The woman hesitated for a moment, and finally spoke, 11 years ago, I remember it was a spring. Why? I am a servant in Master Xia's yard. The master fell seriously ill in winter and never got better. The lady was so anxious that she took him to seek medical treatment everywhere, but he didn't get better for years. One day in the spring, before they came back, they received news that the whole yard was all the servants were sent away. I was a bought servant, and I was freed from slavery and left the Xia mansion. It is said that some of the family sons did not leave the mansion, but were sent to farms in other places. Xiao Chuan asked, don't you know the reason? I am just a servant. The masters don't tell us the reason, and we don't know it either. At first I thought the young master was gone, but later I heard that the young master was fine. I privately guessed that it was probably because Madame Xia felt that we didn't serve him well, so she sent us all away and chose better people to serve him. Madame Xia really loves the young master, the middle-aged woman muttered. Xia Xingchuan's heart trembled when he heard this, and he asked, Madame Xia really loves the young master? After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 448. The middle-aged woman said in a matter-of-fact tone, ordinary people love their only son very much, let alone the only son of the general's wife. How can she not treasure him? The sense of disobedience in Xia Xingchuan's heart became more and more serious, and he asked, how does Mrs. Xia dote on this child? Even though too many years have passed, for the middle-aged woman, her days at the Xia family are completely life experiences, so she remembers every scene of the past very clearly. The children of a rich family are different from those of our small family. When the young master sneezes, the wife becomes very anxious. I was able to join the family back then because I learned some medical skills from my father who died long ago. My wife also, there is a doctor in the house. The young master feels a little uncomfortable, so he goes to the doctor. The young master cried twice more, and the madam was so worried that she couldn't sleep all night long. There were so many people in the house waiting for her. When the young master fell ill, the madam personally stayed with her at night, and brought good things like running water into the young master's yard. The fine mutton fat jade, the young master smashed it to pieces, but the lady was not angry, she only asked him if he was happy, she didn't care about money at all. One after another, AncientChina couldn't believe that the person the woman was talking about was his mother. The middle-aged woman recalled something again. When the young master was seriously ill, I heard my wife secretly say that she prayed to the gods and Buddhas in the sky and would rather trade her own life for the young master's. I heard that the wife had a family, the temple was efficacious, so I went to the temple and knelt for a whole day. Such a noble person, for the sake of his own son, didn't even care until his head was bruised and bloody. AncientChina has now confirmed that this person is definitely not the mother in his memory. He has received countless looks and dislikes from Mrs. dislike. AncientChina removed all the impossibilities. No matter how outrageous the guess was, the truth gradually came closer to his mind. He asked, "You went to serve Master Xie. Does the young master have any birthmarks or moles on his body?" The middle-aged woman said, "When I came to see the young master, he was only 5 months old. I have taken care of him for more than a year, and I once took him to bathe. I remember that there was a black mole on his ankle, but it was which foot, I can't remember." AncientChina was now extremely convinced that he was not Mrs. son, and there were no moles on either of his ankles. So who is he? Who is his biological mother? The first thing AncientChina thought of was the outer room his father had built in the border town. His father and mother have been separated for many years. Like many generals, his father has another home in the border town. In that home, there is a sister who is 4 years older than him. When he returns to the border town, he will investigate carefully. "Do you still have contact with the other servants who served Master Xie?" AncientChina asked. The middle-aged woman named a few names, but these people were not in the capital, but in other places. AncientChina casually threw a few silver ingots to the two of them, and asked Xiao Song to take them away. The woman's husband didn't know anything about the Xie family. The reason why they were kidnapped together was because he was afraid that the woman would not return home all night and her husband's family would suspect her innocence. Outside the house, Xiao Song put masks on the eyes of the couple again, and also told them not to talk about what happened today, as he warned them that they might be killed. AncientChina, who was in the room, was still huddled in the shadows. Xiao Song sent the two of them away and turned back, but he didn't even notice that he had moved his position. "Master," Xiao Song asked softly. AncientChina said after a long time, "Go back." Early the next morning, AncientChina went out. When Mrs. Xie received the news, she couldn't help complaining, "You don't know how to raise a thing, and he runs away as soon as you get home. How can I count on him in the future?" Nanny Xie looked embarrassed and said, "Madam, maybe the young master has something important to do when he goes out. Don't think too much about it." Mrs. Xie sneered, "Everyone in the yamen has been sealed. If he has anything to do, he must have gone to the Gu family again. He recognized his godson and thought he was getting married." Grandma Xie sighed, "Madam, no matter how much you don't like the young master, he is your hope for life after all. If he doesn't make a difference, that's it. Now that he has a bright future, do you want to just watch the hard work like this? After all these years, I ended up making a wedding dress for someone else." Mrs. Xie didn't like AncientChina, and she didn't want to see AncientChina get too close to the Gu family and make a joke about her godmother being more important than her. Seeing her relaxed expression, Grandma Xie breathed a sigh of relief. "Master Chuan, you are back. My wife was still talking about you this morning," the Gu family's concierge said happily. As soon as he entered Gu's house, AncientChina felt that his breathing seemed to become much easier, and the depression in his heart seemed to gradually dissipate. After Zhang Yuniang sent her godson away yesterday, she always felt unhappy. Now that she is back, her heart is finally relieved. When she saw Xie Chuan, she immediately asked, "Did you eat in the morning? I went to cook you a bowl of wontons yesterday." The girl has packed a lot, and it's just a cold day, so she can keep it. Didn't eat? Then godmother will cook wontons for you right now. Zhang Yuniang agreed with a smile. Zhang Yuniang's cooking skills are average, but these wontons were made by a crazy girl, and the whole family can trust her skills. Xie Chuan was really hungry, so he sat in the kitchen and ate 3 large bowls before finally feeling full. Niu Niu trotted in and grabbed Xie Chuan's clothes. "Brother, have you eaten? Come on, we're going to play cards." Just before leaving, Zhang Yuniang pulled Xie Chuan aside and told him, "You will meet a girl in her teens in a while. She is not very clear-headed. If she says something crazy, don't take it to heart." Xuying was crazy, and Zhang Yuniang kept stopping outsiders from seeing her. Xie Chuan actually knew from other channels that there was someone hiding in the backyard of the Gu family. Zhang Yuniang felt that if she kept it a secret from him, it would be awkward. Xie Chuan saved the lives of the Gu family many times. Zhang Yuniang felt that although Xie Chuan was young, he was a very promising child and would probably not go out and talk nonsense. Xie Chuan was pulled to the backyard by his sister. A table had been set up here, with a pile of square wooden cards on the table, with various patterns carved on them. "This is called mahjong. Sister Xuying taught me. My eldest brother wants to study, and my father is writing a storybook. Fortunately, you came today, otherwise we couldn't play," Niu Niu said happily. "But I don't know how to play," Xie Chuan said. Guzaki had only played a few times, and now he was addicted to the game. He urged, "Learn while playing. Hurry up." As soon as Xie Chuan sat down, Xuying said, "Brothers are on the same battlefield, Miss San, we have to prevent them from cheating." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 449. Niu Niu immediately said, "Brothers don't cheat, don't talk nonsense." Gu Zhao nodded and said, "Yes, Niu Niu and I have the best relationship. I won't cheat anyone if I cheat her." Xie Chuan also said, "They are not brothers." Unexpectedly, the crazy girl looked at the two brothers suspiciously and said, "I don't know why the second young master wears a mask, but you are obviously the second young master." Xie Chuan frowned slightly. He wanted to be the second young master of the Gu family, but he was not. When Xie Chuan and Niu Niu were together, they always talked more than others. "My godmother is right, this girl is really crazy." Gu Zhao nodded vigorously and said, "She is even more ignorant than me, so my parents don't dare to let her go out at all." The crazy girl was unhappy and said, "We are obviously brothers. Even if you wear a mask, you can't hide it from me. Your jawlines are exactly the same." After hearing this, Niu Niu tilted her head to look at the jawlines of her two brothers, and suddenly looked surprised. "This is really the case." The crazy girl added, "I can see the eyes even with the mask on, and the eyes are exactly the same as the boss's." Niu Niu looked at Xie Chuan's eyes again. They were indeed very similar to her elder brother Guyan. They both had double eyelids and almond-shaped eyes. "Brother, let me tell you that you are born into our family, otherwise you wouldn't be able to look so similar," Niu Niu said. Gu Zhao looked at Xie Chuan in surprise and said, "My father and mother are following me like a fan every day, thinking about where to find our second brother. Otherwise, brother Xie could just think of us as our second brother and save them the trouble of looking for him. It's over." Niu Niu felt that there was something wrong with this suggestion, but the little girl really wanted AncientChina to stay at her home. She said, "This is a good suggestion. I will tell my parents this when we have lunch later." After all, AncientChina was older than the two of them. He shook his head and said, "Yes, it means, no, it means no, your parents should want to find their own child. This child cannot be replaced by anyone else. Niu, if your parents lost you and found a little girl who looked like you as your daughter, would you be happy?" Niu shook her head like a rattle. "Although I don't want my parents to be sad, I don't want to see the situation either." Gu Zhao sighed and said, "I thought this could get the best of both worlds, but I didn't expect that it was all in vain. Forget it, let's play cards first." Children don't gamble money when playing cards, they gamble on snacks. Although AncientChina is a novice, his luck at cards is particularly good. In less than an hour, he has a plate full of snacks. Lost everything, lost everything. No fight, no fight. Niu and Gu Zhao surrendered together. The crazy girl still had some stocks, but she was looking at AncientChina with suspicion at this time. AncientChina said helplessly, "I didn't cheat. Your third lady lost to me based on her true ability." Niu also nodded, "Maybe brother Xia is a natural mahjong player, he can win no matter how he plays cards." AncientChina, perhaps because it was too easy to win, was not too obsessed with playing mahjong. At this time, he gave the snacks he won to Gu Zhao and Niu and asked, "Do you want to continue fighting?" Gu Zhao picked up a snack and ate it, then shook his head fiercely, "I won't fight anymore. I'll fight again in the afternoon. I'll eat something first to make up for it." Being able to knock him off the poker table, the most addicted person, shows how ruthlessly AncientChina wins. Zhang Yuniang had just finished her business and wanted to run over to see what the children were doing. She saw a group of people eating around the mahjong table, and she was suddenly surprised. "Why don't you play anymore? Second brother is very lucky at cards, we can't beat him," Niu said. As soon as the words came out, before she realized something was wrong, Gu Zhao immediately corrected him, "That's wrong, that's right, it's brother Xie, how come you were misled by sister Xueying?" When Zhang Yuniang just heard the words second brother, she was stunned for a moment. She forced a smile on her face and asked, "Why did this girl Xueying mislead you again?" Sister Xueying said that brother Xie is the second brother. She said that his eyes are the same as the eldest brother's, and his jawline is the same as that of the third brother, Niu explained. Zhang Yuniang was shocked when she heard this. Then she looked AncientChina up and down, and it was exactly what the crazy girl said. It's just that AncientChina wears a mask all year round, and after taking off the mask, there are scars on his face. It is difficult for ordinary people to notice the similarity in appearance. You. Zhang Yuniang wanted to ask AncientChina if he was her son, but she was afraid that asking would offend the other party. What a pity. Brother Xie's biological mother is Mrs. Xie. I wish he was also my mother's biological son, so that we can celebrate the new year together. Niu sighed at the side. AncientChina felt a warm current in his heart. Niu hoped that he was Zhang Yuniang's biological son, not because she felt that their relationship was not close enough now, but because she wanted him to spend the new year together. This feeling of being cared about and thought about everything made AncientChina couldn't help but have a little fantasy. Anyway, he was most likely not Mrs. Xie's biological son. Maybe there was a slight possibility that he was Zhang Yuniang's son? Impulsively, AncientChina took the initiative and said, "I am not Mrs. Xie's biological son." As soon as he said this, everyone present was shocked. A flash of surprise flashed in Zhang Yuniang's eyes, and she immediately asked, "Do you still remember what happened before you were 2 years old?" AncientChina shook his head and said, "I don't remember anything before the age of 3. Niu asked, "Mom, doesn't my second brother have any birthmarks?" I have a fish birthmark, maybe he has a cat or dog birthmark. No, your second brother doesn't have a birthmark, not to mention a mole. He was born white and tender. At that time, your father and I were amazed. How could such a beautiful child not be a girl? If it was a little girl, she would definitely be born beautiful, Zhang Yuniang said. There are no birthmarks, and no other special features, so it has added a lot of difficulties to the matter of finding a child. Then what should we do? Otherwise, drop blood to identify relatives. Na Yuniu had a wild idea. Zhang Yuniang's eyes lit up. The crazy girl said, blood test is not accurate. The same blood type can be compatible, but different blood types cannot be compatible. Even if they are biological mother and son or father and son, they may not have the same blood type. Everyone present didn't understand what she said, but they understood what the crazy girl meant. Zhang Yuniang looked at a loss and said, what should I do? She had a vague feeling in her heart that Xiaxin Chuan was most likely her son. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 450. Mom, what are you having for lunch? Niu Niu suddenly asked. Zhang Yuniang said casually, your grandpa killed one of his chickens and made soup. Gu Zhao was very anxious when he heard this. Mom, who made the soup? Is it Sister Xuying? The crazy girl is good at cooking. She can make any dish into flowers and it is more delicious than others. Gu Zhao is a glutton, so it is very important to him whether the crazy girl cooks. The crazy girl rolled her eyes on the spot and said, Third young master, I want to play cards with you and cook again. Do I need to practice a clone technique? Gu Zhao rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment and said, wouldn't it be a pity for my mother to make soup for the chickens that grandpa worked so hard to raise? When Zhang Yuniang heard this, she couldn't help but feel a little angry, and said, you brat, I've cooked for you so many times before, but you never said you wouldn't eat it. Gu Zhao whispered, I had no choice at that time. Zhang Yuniang wished she could slap her little son on the head. Niu Niu, on the other hand, suddenly rushed to Zhang Yun's side and said, Mom, I want to eat the chicken noodle soup you cooked. It's delicious. Zhang Yuniang felt that her anger because of her youngest son had all dissipated under the comfort of her good daughter. Okay, if you want to eat, I will cook it for you at noon. Gu Zhao casually said from the side, chicken noodle soup, that's okay, it's okay to eat. Zhang Yuniang couldn't bear it anymore and slapped her youngest son on the head, I'm not begging you to eat. By the time it was lunchtime, the Gu family had filled the table. They had cooked rice and chicken noodle soup, all in large porcelain basins. Anyone who wanted to eat could serve it themselves. Brother, you must try the chicken noodle soup cooked by my mother. This is my mother's specialty. Niu Niu happily shared Zhang Yuniang's chicken noodle soup with Xiaxin Chuan. Xiaxin Chuan didn't think much about it. After all, Niu Niu was a person who loved sharing. Zhang Yuniang took the initiative to serve a bowl of chicken noodle soup for Xiaxin Chuan. Xiaxin Chuan had a big appetite. He had just eaten a bowl of rice, and now he ate another bowl of noodles without any reluctance. He just put a chopstick into his mouth, and he was suddenly stunned. Isn't it particularly delicious? Niu Niu asked with a smile. Xiaxin Chuan's eyes suddenly became sour, as if he had seen an old person reunited after a long separation. I seem to have eaten this bowl of chicken noodle soup. Xiaxin Chuan couldn't help but say. Niu Niu asked, why have you eaten it? My family hasn't cooked egg noodles for many days. Countless blurry images flashed before Xiaxin Chuan's eyes, and finally a pair of beautiful almond eyes full of tenderness appeared. Those eyes slowly overlapped with those of Zhang Yuniang in front of her. Mother Xiaxin Chuan couldn't help shouting. 2 lines of tears fell down. When Zhang Yuniang heard this call, her eyes suddenly became sour. My second boy. Mother and son hugged each other and cried. This sudden change caught everyone present by surprise. Gu Mingda's heart was beating wildly. He looked at Xie Chuan with burning eyes, his lips trembled, and asked, are you really a waiter? Xie Chuan was already in tears. I have eaten this bowl of noodles before, I have eaten it, I thought I forgot, I still remember this bowl of noodles, this is the taste of my mother. Most of the pictures in my memory are blurry, but the most delicious taste of the world quietly invades me when I taste it again. For Zhang Yuniang, she had already decided that this was her son at this time. He looked very similar to the two brothers, and she remembered the taste of chicken noodle soup. Even if the King of Heaven came, he would still be her son. Mom, I've missed you so much these years, I've missed you so much. How are you doing? Did you endure hardship in the Xie family? Zhang Yuniang held Xie Xingchuan's face in her hands and asked one sentence after another. Xie Xingchuan thought of the Xie family and saw everyone in the Gu family looking at him with concern. After all, he shook his head and said, the Xie family is very good to me and treats me as their own son. In the past, Xie Xingchuan was just his godson, and Zhang Yuniang thought that the Xie family were her biological parents. Even if she noticed that something was wrong with Xie Xingchuan's condition, it was inconvenient for her to ask more questions. Now she could finally ask. The Xie family is really nice to you. Then why do you? Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Gu Mingda, who gave his wife a look to tell her not to ask any more questions. Gu Mingda felt that asking these questions just after recognizing his relatives might make his son feel uncomfortable. Niu asked from the side, Brother Xie is the second brother, so he won't eat? Zhang Yuniang wiped her tears hard and said incoherently, eat, the most important thing in life is to eat. We won't disturb your second brother, let's eat first. Xie Xingchuan also breathed a sigh of relief. He really didn't want to worry the Gu family about the mess in the Xie family. Mom, the chicken noodle soup you made is so delicious. I want to eat it again, Xie Xingchuan said. Although he is a lost child, he also understands the cause and effect. It was Zhang Guangzhou who was abducted and left Guang'an County, either intentionally or not. The Gu family has also tried their best to find him over the years. He had always liked Gu's family, but now that he recognized his relatives, not only did he not have any resentment, but he actually had a sense of surprise that his dream had come true. Okay, when you were a child, you liked to eat the chicken noodle soup cooked by your mother the most. But at that time, your family was poor, so you only ate it a few times. Now that your family is rich, if you want to eat, my mother will cook it for you. Zhang Yuniang smiled. Said. Mrs. Gu directly delivered the large pot of chicken noodle soup to Xie Xingchuan. Be good, dear grandson, eat directly from the basin. Niu also said, I'm full, I'll let my second brother eat. Xie Xingchuan's nose couldn't help but feel sour again. After eating, the Gu family did not do anything else. They all gathered around Xie Xingchuan and asked him about his childhood. Xie Xingchuan's childhood was by no means a happy one. Ever since he could remember, General Xie had been very strict with him in his teachings. There was a cruel as long as you can't practice to death kind of cruelty. During the winter training and the summer training, I have long heard that General Xie is strict in running the army. I didn't expect that he would be so strict in disciplining his son. It is precisely because of his strict teaching that you are what you are today. Gu Mingda sighed with emotion. Zhang Yuniang was very distressed, but she also knew that since she wanted to be a general, she couldn't relax in her martial arts training. She asked, your father is strict, but what about Mrs. Xie? Is she a loving mother? Madame Xie was just finding fault with Xie Xingchuan. As long as she could find fault with him, Madame Xie would use it to punish Xie Xingchuan. But Xie Xingchuan only talked about General Xie's strictness at this time, and later covered up Mrs. Xie's harsh side and said, she knows that I am not her son, so she has never been able to get close to me, and she doesn't care about me much on weekdays. However, Zhang Yuniang still felt very uncomfortable. Thinking of such a young child having to face an indifferent mother, how uncomfortable Xie Chuan must have been as a child. The time the family spent together seemed to pass extremely quickly, and it was getting dark in the blink of an eye. The concierge also ran over to remind, "Master, Madam, someone from the Xie family is coming to take Master Xie home."